Okay, so as a defender, you need to store logs, right? So now I'm going to take an example of something called syslog, which is there in Linux and Mac. You can also get it on Windows, but you need to download it and all. It's not it's not there by default. So syslog is something that you can use to log data or log everything that is happening on your instance, server, host, whatever it is. Okay, so let's take an example. This is your server. Now I'm talking from a purely defender's point of view. Okay, when you're a defender, you need to log all your data. The question is, how do you log it such that your data is secure and your integrity of your data is maintained? So here is a way, or here's a solution which I'm proposing. What you do, you log in 3 stages. Your first is logging default or default logging. The second is hidden logging, but on the hidden local logging. And the third is remote. So why do you have 3 locations of logging when all the data you're logging is the same? Now I'm not going to show you how to set this up and all, because you can simply Google it and change the configuration of how it's done. I'll tell you how to do it such that you can implement it in any fashion. Whether you're using syslog or using any logging mechanism, the concept will work in any way. So now when an attacker comes and attacks your server or your instance, okay, or your VM, the first thing he's going to do is go and check in the default location for the logs. Okay, now what happens? He sees that the default location is there, he goes, changes the data in the logs, and that's wherein something is wrong. How will you know when something is wrong? Wherein on the server, the data of your hidden logs is not equal to the data of your default logging. Now, how do you set this up? It's basically your main logging is going to be your hidden logging section. So this is where it mainly logs all the data, but it is in another location with another file name. Okay, and then it just copies all the data to the default location. Or not copies, I would say it appends the data specifically, because you want to compare it. If you do a default copy, the data which the attacker did wipe out initially would not be there because you copied all the data. So you append the data, but at the same time when you're appending, you're also on the server, you're comparing the logs between your default logging and your hidden logging. So this is step 1, okay, of knowing whether your system may be compromised. The second step is you log remotely as well. So all your data from your hidden data also gets logged to a remote server. Now, why does this exist? It's because if an attacker has compromised your system, again, depends on how smart he is, but this is where you're creating barriers. So even though supposing he does realize that there's a hidden logging section, he'll go and wipe out this data. That's where remote comes in, wherein you still have your logs stored. So this helps from a redundancy point of view, from a centralized logging point of view, so that you can compare with other data. And supposing the system cannot connect to the log server, okay, then your logging will stop on your remote server. That's when you know, okay, there's something you need to check on your local instance where something is wrong. Either your system is compromised, or the port has been closed, or the service of the daemon has been stopped or by the local system for some XYZ reason. So that's the reason you have a third logging section, which is going to be remote. Now, some people come and do say that, okay, what if the attacker comes to know that there's a remote logging section? Okay, he could stop it and he could compromise your remote logging server. But then understand this, your remote logging server is a one-way, connection. It's just sending data, and make sure it is TCP, by the way. It's not a UDP connection. It's a TCP connection which is going from your local system to your logging server. And that's only a way to append data. You can't read it, nothing. Okay, your data, like the server, the instance cannot read the data, it cannot write any data to it, it can only append data to it. And that also you can have a middleware which goes and does this. So this prevents barriers. Now from an attacking point of view, it becomes hard to not only compromise your own system, or not to compromise your own system, From an attacking point of view, it becomes hard to compromise a system, then to compromise a logging server, then to compromise multiple other systems. Plus, you are having barriers in between, like you have a firewall, you have the IDS, IPS, all of that. So, this is the way you would want to set up your system, wherein your logging system works. And from a later point of view, if you do once you do realize that something is wrong, you can still come back to it and figure out where things have got wrong, where the logs have changed, all of that. Now this may not work against a default botnet. It's towards a very specific attack, like if a determined attacker is attacking your system. In that case, this should work.